welcome everybody. I think everybody I'm seeing today are return people, right? Thank you all for coming back and hanging in with us on this luncheon. Oh, I'm sorry, new person. Yeah, welcome. What's your name?
Noah.
Oh, Noah. Hi, welcome, Noah. So, you know, Pam has been running this Lunch and Learn series all year, and we've really appreciated it. And it's fun to have everybody coming back. You've heard me say this before, but our goal statement, the Immaculate Community Goal Statement, calls for us to build relations in society which foster access, dignity, and full human development, and to strategically change practices and situations which impede such access. So these monthly lunch and learns are our way of building relationships in society with all. Back. You've also heard me say that one of our mantras in terms of the work that we do is to educate, pray, and act. So today, Marianne Diaz is with us and will be talking to us about her work with CleanSlate and Southern California Counselling Center. And so she'll be educating us about mental health issues and how to break the cycle one person at a time. But we always ask you to also act based on what you're hearing today. So as you're listening to Marianne, think about one or two things that you might do to make a difference, and nothing is too small. We also ask you to pray, each in your own way, as we consider the roots of mental health issues and how they relate to systemic discrimination, which is becoming more and more apparent in our lives today, locally, nationally, and internationally. We all can see it. I did a quick search of the web this morning to get some statistics about mental health. Mental health disorders in the United States have increased from about 19% in 2019 to 22% in 2021. Those were the numbers I pulled today. I'm going to guess they're even higher in 2023. The site I was looking at suggested that the increase is due to the rise in social media, the impact of COVID-19, and societal trends that have resulted in smaller family units and less community involvement. Over 54% of adults don't receive any kind of mental health treatment at all. And for those who do receive treatment, most experience significant delays measured in years between the identification of symptoms and first treatment. So I just suggest to all of us that if we truly accept that all people are our brothers and sisters, regardless of race, ethnicity, country of origin, or sexual orientation, and so on, and as members of all major faith traditions, we're called to take care and love each other. So Marianne Diaz has an important message to share with us today about how she's conducted her life's work to do just that, with her focus on making a difference one person at a time. So we hope to see you at the next Lunch and Learn on December 15th. Watch for future dates in 2024. We will be continuing next year. If you're not on our mailing list, be sure to sign up. And if you have an interest in membership, please let us know that too, because we take on new members every year. I'm looking over there at one person, particularly. We take new members annually. So thank you for being here, and welcome, Marianne. Thanks for being with us today.
My name is Marianne Diaz, and I have an interesting life. So I'm going to start to give you some of my background, if it's helpful for you. So my father is an immigrant. My mother was a first generation Mexican. And we grew up in a community that really didn't like us. They treated us very badly and tried to run us out of the community. So I grew up with a chip on my shoulder, particularly for people who were not folks of color, because they treated us bad. They didn't want us around. So, in some way, the oppression and the lack of resources and being poor, which I believe is an act of violence against humans if you're poor. It limits you access, it limits you resources, it limits you ways of feeling dignified about yourself when you got to ask for help. So it was rough. It was a rough growing up period. And I became a gang member. I mean, it seemed to be a good way to re-empower myself. When you become a gang member, you're no longer feeling like you are helpless. You feel pretty strong and pretty tough. And I was. Well, I still am, but I was. My activity in the gang, well, I'll just say this. I'm really good at everything I do. I was a really good gang member. I ended up in prison for 4 years. And during those 4 years, I guess, thankfully, the judge who sentenced me, who he wanted to give me 8, decided that he felt that I was worth saving. And he said, I'm going to give you 4 years, so it's enough time that you know you don't want to go back, but not so much time that you want to stay. And that was so amazing to me that he would even consider the possibility of reclamation, like I could be saved, right, in some way. So when I came out, I immediately was hired, which is really another amazing thing. I was immediately hired by the County of Los Angeles to do gang intervention because I knew all the gangs in my community, and I had, you guys know this term, I had juice. So my word was really important in the community. And I was talking about peace, and that really had a lot of other gang members scratching their head about what happened. What's going on here? And I started feeling like, we are making it easier for people to eliminate us. Like we have now become the tool of the oppressors because we're doing it to ourselves, right? So that was, for some reason, that resonated with the people I was talking to. And we did a lot of peace agreements out in the community. We went from 300 gang-related homicides in I think it was like 83. By the time we hit like the 90s, we were at 0 in East LA and 0 in the Harbor Gateway. What happened immediately as soon as we hit 0, they cut the program. And to me, that's people who are not thinking about the needs of the community, because the community needed people who understood them to be with them in making these decisions, life and death situations, right? Not people way out here in the government saying what they need, but the people who have their feet on the ground and who get it and who understand that life is really hard for a lot of folks out there. I'm in the middle right now of my holiday feast drive. And I call it a holiday feast drive because Thanksgiving and the indigenous people, it just doesn't really feel well, to call it that. But we're raising money now for the community of Watts. We're raising money for 20 families to give them everything they need for the holiday feast. And if any of you want to help, we're taking those donations for that. But I created, I co-created, because you can't do anything by yourself. I believe in community. And so I've been able to recruit some very social justice minded therapists and social workers, and those who are in school to become social workers, paraprofessional counselors, people who grew up in the community, to build what we call Southern California Counseling Center Watts. We've been there for about 10 years. I've been in the community for about 20, working in that community. And what I felt we needed to bring to that community was a sense of seeing themselves in the people providing the therapy. Like they had to see a reflection of who they are, so we could do a shorthand rather than having to try to understand the community's plight and what they're dealing with and how the oppressive nature of, like, the city of LA. I mean, you can only see how they dole out the funds for different communities. Watts for a long time has been one of those under-resourced communities that didn't really get what they needed. They got what people thought they needed, but they didn't really ask them. So when we went out there, we asked them, and they wanted counselors who got it, who understood that when they go to court and the judge tells them you need to do parenting, you need to do individual counseling, you need to do family counseling, you need to do group counseling, anger management, and you need to keep a job, and you need to keep a roof over, and all these things that they ask of them to do. How do you keep a job when you have to do 6 or 7 different groups every week? There's not many jobs that are that flexible for you to say, I've got to do this. And so what it says to me is they're setting them up for failure. They don't want them to get their kids back. They don't want them to not go back to jail. So we designed Watts to be flexible. So where most, I'm gonna call it this, we're therapy land, which is to me developed in Europe and not here, not for Latinos, not for African Americans, but developed in a way that serves privileged folks, right? That you can't always say, I'll see you next week on Thursday at 5 o'clock. Every week you fit into my schedule, right? So we feel that we will try to fit it, we will fit into their schedule as much as possible, because we believe in advocating for their freedom and the reunification of their family. It's so important because families in the community are torn apart by systems without any feelings about what they're doing to these people. And we have set up a system where we actually care. We call each other co-conspirators. We are co-conspirators in trying to level out the hierarchy that exists in the systems that have been developed by folks that don't look like me, right? That don't look like some of you in this room. Like there isn't this understanding of what the reality is for us. I remember as a kid, I hope I can tell you this story and you don't get bored, but as a kid, we were very, very poor. And we were living in this community. It was unincorporated county. We had a Hawthorne mailing address, but we were really Lenox. And my dad got sick, so he couldn't work. And then Catholic Charities stepped up and they wanted to help us. But what they didn't understand, and I'm just saying this, they pulled up in this big old truck that says Catholic Charities on the side, and I'm humiliated. I am humiliated. And the community humiliated us. The other kids in that neighborhood were laughing at us. Oh, you couldn't even get Christmas presents. You couldn't, all this stuff. And I remember telling my father, like, I'd rather have nothing than to have charity thrown in my face and tell the whole world that we're accepting it. You know what I mean? So the way I've developed the holiday feast drive is it's a thank you to the families for allowing us to serve. It's just different, right? Like, thank you for allowing us to serve you and to train my counselors to be great therapists so that they have this sense of pride instead of feeling they're getting a handout, because that never feels good. Well, for me, it never felt good. That's why both of our nonprofits, the Southern California Counselling Center and CleanSlate, where we do tattoo removal, hoping people can get access to jobs, and get access to acceptance. Because all of us have done something, well, maybe not all of us. I know I have done stuff in our past that we wish people didn't have to know. And when you're tattooed like a gang member, or tattooed with racist stuff on your body, or you're tattooed with proof that, maybe you were molested as a child, so you're trying to cover your face, you don't want somebody to see you as attractive, so you make yourself as scary as possible, and then you try to get a job, and nobody wants to hire you. So we do tattoo removal, but the thing I was getting to was that both of us will do our work on sliding scales, because I believe people underestimate the community. They can come up with $10. They can come up with $20, but they can't come up for $600 for a treatment and a dermatologist. That's not going to happen, right? But, all the work I've done has been about fairness. Let's just be fair. Let's build equity. And let's build support for communities that really do want to help themselves. They don't want people to come in and save them. They want it to be fair. Let's make a fair playing field. The distribution of wealth in this nation is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. People, they don't care about the people on the other end of it. There's just more accumulation of wealth on this end and nothing here. And to me, I wish there was a way that we could distribute it a little bit more fair, but we're capitalists. So, most people don't think that way. More, more, more. I want more, more, more for me. And I'll give you what I can, what I can give you, but to not really make a difference, So I'm here to, obviously, to see if you want to help me make a difference. If you want to find a way to provide support to CleanSlate or to the Southern California Counselling Center, we're married, basically. These two agencies are married because we support each other in what we do. I do a lot of training for the counselors. I'm a director, but I'm also a founding director of CleanSlate. And I picked up some medical probably people right here to come and learn how to do laser treatments because people aren't who they were. They come to us and they're so ashamed of what they're getting removed. Like I had this one kid come in. Well, to me, he was a kid because I'm like in my 60s now, but he was a kid. He was like in his 30s. And he said, I can't believe I got this on my body. And it was a swastika, right? And he said, you probably hate me and you probably don't want to see, and I go, I'm like, I'm going to help get that thing off a lot faster than anybody else. It's like, let's get that done right now. And he was so grateful that we didn't treat him like a racist. We treated him like a human being that was looking for help. And he really was. I mean, how do you walk into our treatments are at Avalon Carver Community Center in South LA, right across the street from South Park. Almost all folks of color in that community. And he had the guts to walk into our building where all our staff are people of color. Most of the people there receiving services are folks of color. And he had the swastika on him. And I said, if you wanted this so bad that you would walk into this building and trust that we would accept you, you've changed. Something has changed in you, and I want to support that. Right. So I don't know what else you want me to talk about, but I'm here for any questions or anything you want. I know that my life, as a gang member, and I want you to think, if you can think about this, and I believe this because I've worked with hundreds and hundreds of gang members. When I talk to them about, being a gang member is like asking for assisted suicide, basically. It is. Because our lives were so crappy that it didn't matter that we'd be risking our lives every day just walking to school or going to the store or whatever. And every gang member I've worked with has said, yes, I wanted to die. But I couldn't do it to myself. A lot of religious reasons are a lot of it. They didn't want to go to hell. But also, they don't want to feel, and believe me, I think dying by suicide, there's nothing cowardly about it. In my opinion, I couldn't do it, but to be killed by someone else, somehow it held some honor, right? But if you thinking about it, that I definitely wanted to die at some point in my life. And I did things to kind of ask it to come, And I'm thinking, what if they were successful? Like all the things that I've done now in my life wouldn't happen. Not that I'm changing the world, but I'm doing it one person at a time. People are actually living and thriving in their life because we're giving them solutions that they can do, not that we want them to do. They come up with their own, and they seem to be thriving pretty well. If you think of it, it sticks. If I give it to you, it goes away. I mean, it's always when you give somebody something, to me, if I give you a solution, then it's my solution, not yours. And then if it doesn't work, then you can blame me. You don't have to take responsibility for it. If it comes from you, most likely you're willing to do it. Like, this is what I'm willing to do. And so I really believe in agency, for people to have that agency without having to thank me. Thank you for removing my tattoos. I said, you paid for it. You did it. I was just the vehicle to get it done, but you did it. You came to your appointments. You came through the door and you dealt with the pain, because I'm telling you, that hurts. That tattoo removal is so painful. I used to be sleeved. I wear long sleeves, habit, but I had tattoos all over my arms. And it hurts. So don't get tattooed up right now. Don't go get a tattoo. I'm gonna tell you, it hurts a lot worse than getting a tattoo, getting them removed. So, but I'm an open book. Anybody want to talk to me? Okay, yeah, for sure. Yes, yes, thank you for reminding me. So in January, I'll be starting it'll be the 64th class. We do 2 a year of the community counselor certificate course. And it's a 6-month course. And what it is, it's a community counselor training. We teach you how to be counselors with keeping in mind social justice all the way through it, cultural competency, and being trauma informed. Knowing that most people who are coming in for therapy have had traumas in their life. Well, let's just face it, everybody's had trauma in their life. If you don't go to therapy, you're just dealing with your own trauma. But we do trauma-informed therapy, and we do it in a way that's not really, we're not about teaching you how to pathologize people. We don't want to teach you how to diagnose folks. We want to teach you how to be relational with the community, how to be able to have conversations that make sense for that community, and try to know what your biases are. You know, you have to know yourself in order to help someone else. You have to know when you're being triggered by something. You have to know when, like, this is going to be a person I'm going to have a hard time working with because I was abused as a kid or whatever. You know what I mean? You have to know those things about yourself. So CCC is about learning to be a counselor, but also learning about yourself. And that has changed people's lives. We've had people leave abusive relationships just when they were taking the course. They go, oh shit, oops, sorry. I cuss a little here, okay? I'm in an abusive relationship, and they didn't even see it that way until they came to the course, right? So like, it changes your life, but you can change others after the course. And so we get some of our paraprofessionals to work in Watts because they take this course. They have to take it first. We also do a LMFT training and a social work training at the counseling center. And some of the things that we offer, which is really unique, we have a rage resolution group, right? Rage resolution was my answer to DV groups, because people aren't born to be domestic violence perpetrators. It happens to them. They become this person, right? And a lot of it, I think, has to do with the rage that exists in you if you have been abused as a child. The rage is there. And so you don't take care of it because there's too much shame in admitting you were abused to anybody. And you go through life angry, and you don't know how to have a conversation with people, and you feel you need to control everything around you, including your partner. And sometimes it leads to violence because it hurts too much that person might actually be thinking about leaving, right? So the rage group is, we have rage groups, we have relational parenting, we have survivors groups for people who have been at the receiving end of domestic violence. Oh, we have anger management through stress. We have anger management through movement. Yeah, anger management through movement and through meditation. So we had to go to the courts and tell them this will keep people from hurting each other. Meditation, mindfulness, movement, yoga, these are things that should be available to everybody to help themselves. because people carry around a lot of stress in their life. And if you live in a community, or like say, if you're poor, you have to think about how you're gonna put food on the table every day. How are you gonna keep the lights on? How are you gonna pay the rent? How are you gonna put gas in your car to get to work? How are you gonna keep your job when you have a sick child at home and you don't have a nanny, right? You don't have access to those things to help you provide for your kid when you're not there. So, and we do couples counseling, we do individual counseling, we do family counseling. We've had whole families in our office, and that's work. I'm gonna tell you, that's pretty rough. Families, I don't know, we get our biggest, we get our the most people contact us after the holidays. I need therapy. And it's usually because they go, I had to go hang out with my family. You know what I mean? I had to go hang out with my family. Oh my God. Like, and they need some help because they're either angry or really hurt by having that interaction, because not everybody's going to take a look at themselves. A lot of people are just, they don't care. I mean, maybe they care, but they don't want to do the work to show somebody they care. What other programs do I have? Oh, we have our youth empowerment programs, which is our attempt to try to keep kids from getting into trouble and getting into gangs and getting high and all that good stuff. We're trying to help prevent that by giving them some sense of empowerment, because I believe teens are probably one of the most oppressed populations in our community, because they don't get to make a lot of decisions in their life, and everybody makes the decisions for them, and they're controlled. Like, you feel like you got to control a teen, right? I got to control you because you don't know how to figure things out, and because you're like, you have no impulse control. You can do stuff. True. It's true. But the more you have somebody feel like they have a say-so in their own life, I think people just feel better about themselves. They feel they can make their own decisions. So was that good, Pam? Oh, and our next community counselor course starts in January. If anyone's interested, I'm going to send the application, or I'll leave some business cards. How about that? So you can always find the courses on our websites. And if you need tattoo removal, I won't tell anybody, you can come in and you can come see us at Avalon Carver. For trauma work, we use the CRIM model, which is community resiliency model, which has some components to it, which is like to help people understand that everybody has a resiliency zone, right? Every person cares. I wish I had a board I could do it. A resiliency zone, right? So it's like this. And at any given time, we can be bumped up out of the resiliency zone if we get upset, angry, surprised, or down, depressed, sad, right? But most of the time, you can kind of come back, right, into it. The folks we serve are almost always bumped out of that resiliency zone because they live in constant trauma. Their people are getting killed around them. Law enforcement is treating them like less than human. They have lack of resources. They're trying to feed their kids. Kids are being taken from, all these things are happening. So they're often they're out of their zone up here. And so what we try to do is we work with them through, like, we teach them grounding. We teach them ways, it's called help. It's called self-help, which is like just being able to, if you're in that zone, if you can just refocus, because when you're bumped out of the zone, you're not in your thinking brain anymore. The part of your brain that thinks is offline. It's all this one in the back, what we call the reptilian brain. That's all about survival, and survival in any way necessary, right? So what we do is when we work with these families, we try to help them, and people, we try to help them notice when they're not in their thinking part, because you become reactive rather than responsive. And when you're reactive, you make poor decisions. When you're responsive, you think out, you might have some idea of what the outcomes might be should you respond in this way. You have a way to think, so we call it a pause. So there's just slowing down things, Judy. We like try to slow down things with families, give them tools, and if you come to the center, we'll teach you those tools. We definitely will, the CRIM model. In fact, they're going to do one tomorrow. They're going to do this big CRIM training. And it's amazing how when we first, okay, I'm going to be completely honest. When this CRIM model first came to the center, this is exactly what I said. And I hope I don't offend anybody. I said, dang, man, another white Eurocentric model coming into the community, you think it's going to work, right? And so I said, you can bring it to Watts, but we're going to have to customize it for the community, because there was a part of that training that had an assumption that there were big traumas and little traumas, right? And I said, you come to Watts, everything's a big trauma, because there's systemic racism that's happening all the time. There's systemic poverty. There's systemic social injustice. All these systemic things are running 24/7. So everybody in that community is really up here trying to just live. So there's no little T. They're all big T's, and we have to teach it. We have to work this way and know that there's almost this idea that there's a trauma that happens and then you have a pause to recover. I said, I've been in this community a long time. There's a trauma, and then a trauma, and then a trauma. And you know what I mean? So there isn't that ability to rest. So we have to offer the model differently, which is about just being able to breathe. If you can just learn breath, if you can learn like slowing things down, mindfulness, thinking about what that other person's intentions might have been. Because if you're always on high alert, you think everybody's intentions are bad. You're ready for a fight all the time. So, like give it a minute. Ask them what, what are you here for? Right. And we also have to be mindful about when they come in, and they might be, when they come to the center, they're all like, we have to be able to stay calm and not help escalate them by being scared ourselves. I just know that it's because they are like so overwhelmed. If I can be calm, they'll meet me there, right? Sit down next to them. What's going on? Just kind of bring things down. So those are how we deal with our families that come in. And as far as fairness, I think, or equity, I think it's okay to have a conversation with them and just say what may not look fair to you is equity. Like we're trying to create equity, which means that if a family of 5 needs 2 turkeys and 3 boxes of stuffing, and you get 1 turkey and 1 box of stuffing, it's equity, because they need more than you need, right? Because you can't give equal distribution to everybody, because then that's not equity. That's like giving too much to this family and not enough to that one. So I think just being really clear about what your intentions are, that it's not like, this isn't like, oh, we like them better than you, it's about what feels equitable. And you do have to explain to people what the difference is between equity and equality. Being equal is different than having equity, right? I don't know if that helped at all. And, I'm always willing to come down and talk to them, Judy. No, I'm just kidding. No, we don't. But we do a lot of training on self-help. Like self-care is very important to do the work. I mean, when you're burnt out, you're not helping anybody. I mean, it's impossible. You're spent, and you're probably causing damage at home or in other parts of your life, because you don't have any more to give, and you do need to refuel yourself in some way. I encourage my counselors and everyone who works with me to find time to do what they love. What do you love to do? And it's weird, because if you love to help people, that's kind of weird. Like, what are you going to do? But you have to have time to replenish, because once you're done, I mean, I could say this to Judy, I think, like, when you're done, when you're so overwhelmed and so done, like, and you can't, and you don't take time to replenish yourself, then the loss to the community is incalculable because you can't do it anymore. Like, you don't give yourself the rest so that you can come back full steam again, you know? And so I think I'm going to be taking mine in the next 2 weeks. I'm going to be gone from the center, and all the clinicians and everybody go, "Oh my God, what do you mean? You're not going to be here?" And I said, "Well, you're here. And if I trained you well, I trust you that you'll take care of the community the same way I do, but I'll be back." And that's why I'm going to take this time, because I want to come back. And I can feel myself around this time of year tired. I'm tired. Do I look tired? You know, I'm 64 years old, and I'm starting to get the Medicare in the mail and stuff. And I'm like going, wow, I've been doing this a long time, you know? And so it's okay to take time for yourself to rest, because there's younger people out there, if you've trained them well, if they understand the mission, and if they get the spirit of the work you do. I mean, I'm training white privileged counselors all the time. And what's interesting is, like, they don't know that what they're saying sometimes is offensive. They don't know it. I know it's not intentional, you know, but when we had our backpack drive and somebody came in and they were grabbing like 4 or 5 backpacks and stuff, I mean, the question was like, do you think they really need those? And I just looked at her and I said, if they're taking them, they need them. And who am I to question that? And who are you to question that? You're not even from this community. So, you know, reserve your thoughts to yourself. Come talk to me later, you know, and I'll explain to you why I think it's okay for them to take the 4 backpacks. I bet you they have cousins or nieces or nephews that need these backpacks. Isn't the point that people who need them get them? What are they gonna do? You think they're gonna go hustle them on the corner and sell them? Come on, really? Like, what's the point? Really? Like, it's a backpack. But, you know, there's this idea that I think has been internalized and embedded in some folks, that we're always up to no good. As folks of color and poor people, we're always up to something. Like, we're always trying to get over on something. And honestly, most of the time, we just want to have something to survive on. That's it. And we're not trying to get over on anybody. We just want to live. And sometimes that requires us going to get support from other people. We're not trying to take from anybody. You know, that's the thinking that we talk about in our training, is like that thinking of assuming people are shady, right? It's like, why? Like, do you feel that way about this graduate student who happens to be white, who's going to UCLA? Does that thought even enter your mind? But why does it for these folks who are coming to get a backpack? You need to ask yourself, this person could be really shady. This person could be getting over in all kinds of ways, but you don't assume that because of the way our culture's been set up to distrust folks of color, you know, and blame the poor for being poor, which is ridiculous, because the poor are some of the hardest working people I know. They just cannot get a break. You know, I think my parents died very young because they worked too much. You know, I was 16 when my mother died, 17 when my father died. I think they worked themselves to death. And it's not like we had like vacation villas or anything. I mean, we were like barely scraping by because they were like immigrant people who did the jobs that nobody really wanted to do. Cleaning after people was most of the work, you know. I'm just privileged that there's nothing wrong with cleaning after people, but I have a very different job than my father had. And I thank him for, you know, helping me get here. But anyway, any other questions?
Hi, Marianne.
Hi.
Selena Alvarez.
Hi, Selena.
Class of 2022. 2002, actually.
Wow.
Training
Cool.
lay counselors. You're calling it something else now?
Community Counselor Certificate course. And I'm gonna tell you why. Training lay counselors, to me, did not seem to give it the kind of importance it needed. Because nobody knew what lay meant anymore. They're going, what's a lay counselor? You know, and some people say lame counselors, you know, whatever. So I changed the name very shortly after I got there. So, and it caught on really good because it's a certificate program for community counselors. So we're not trying to say we're therapists like from, you know, Antioch or something. No, we're community-based counselors. I don't know if all of you know about WLCAC. WLCAC is a very large program in South Central, started by the Watkins family back in the 60s. And there's a park named after Ted Watkins on Central. And when we were first invited to subcontract for them to provide their counseling for the community, the executive director, Sheila Thomas, was like, I don't know about this therapy thing, you know what I mean? But, you know, it's in the contract, kind of like, oh yeah. And you were the person who came up. We tried to go to Children's Institute. They didn't want to do it. And so they brought your name up and said, you would probably do it. And I said, I'd love to do this. This is the community I want to serve. This is excellent, you know? Well, just a month ago, she called me, she calls me M. She goes, M, all right, I'm sending all my staff for therapy. I believe this stuff now. I get it. I understand how if they're not taking care of themselves, they are doing damage to the community. So my counselors, each of them are picking up 4 or 5 clients, seeing them for 8 sessions, and almost, I would say half of them are saying, I'm going to keep doing this. How much do I have to pay? You know what I mean? I'm going to keep, this has like changed my life. Because finally they're taking care of themselves. Because we're always taking care of others. There's those of us in the world that don't know how to not take care of others. And you don't know how to take care of you so that you can continue to take care of others. Because at some point you can't do it anymore. And we can't lose people like you. Both of you at the table, Judy, Michelle, all of you, Pam, we can't lose people like you. Well, I know at some point we're all going to go. I mean, I'll face that. But I mean, in the work right now, like if we overwhelm ourselves to the point where we are no longer useful, that is not supporting the community. So yes, send them to us. We have excellent counselors to see them. And we do understand. We understand that being in the work is exhausting. I mean, when I get home, my wife wants to talk and I'm like, can I like go in the room? The lights are out. I'm going to sit there, give me an hour and I'll be back. But I had people who've come into the center where both of their kids were murdered this weekend. And I had to work with the mother and I had to work with DCFS and I had to work with law enforcement to get them to understand that this woman doesn't need to be condemned for, like you saying, oh, it was your fault because you didn't take care of them. No, it's systemic. This is a systems problem. And you want to blame her, you know? And then I come out and I talk, you know, but I don't want to talk about clients because I can't. She'll say, how did it go today? It was okay. So how was your day? You know, how are the cats? I mean, you know, that's kind of my, how are the cats doing? You know, because I just want to get out of the feeling of being responsible, because we feel responsible for the community. And that is a huge undertaking to do. But if we support each other, agencies need to support each other. You know what I mean? They need to be there for each other. Like I've always had a vision, and we almost have it at WLCAC because we have GRID there, we have WLCAC, we have Family Source, we have us, you know, that like those hubs those hubs of service where the client can just go from this building to this building to that building. I need clothes for an interview to that building. You know what I mean? So if they're not going all over the world looking for stuff, that you can find it all in a, like they used to have one stops. I don't, does anybody else remember one stops?
Yes.
Yeah, I remember, you know, I go, what happened to them? Why you want to make it so difficult for somebody to get food here, clothing here, go all the way up to North Hollywood to get vouchers or what, you know, whatever you need. Yes. So
Trying to do that with spirit and community members.
because they don't, because it's so, see, my tattoo removal program has been moved so many times because the community would see gang members coming to get tattoo removals. And I'm like, they're getting tattoo removals. You know who accepted us? There was a gay and lesbian center in Whittier that said, oh, you can come here. You know, we're used to being, you know, want to run out of here. Gang members can come hang out. And it was so great seeing gang members like hanging out with the gay community and saying, hey, we're not that different, you know that? You know, nobody wants us around, nobody wants you around. You know, it was kind of, and now we're at Avalon Carver Community Center, which is a very welcoming space. So like, you know, it's also finding places that will accept their responsibility for the plight of people. Like it's us as a society have caused this. It isn't an individual lack of being able to help themselves. The system's set up for failure for folks. And I think we have to be the equalizers. We have to be the advocates, the co-conspirators, and the folks that like balance that out as much as possible. Well, let me give you. So there is, I'm going to do to me, the easiest one is at CleanSlate LA. And that's on Venmo. At CleanSlate LA on Venmo. And PayPal is cleanslatelA.org, I think. But anyways, I have business cards. I can give them out. You want to post it, maybe I can give you one. But yeah, so I think that part of the issue is that also is like if we, and those of you I know you're not, if you, like I said earlier with the intervention work, if the government can decide when you can get funded, then they can decide when they don't want to fund you anymore. And I think that has also been a big problem, is that right when things seem to be going well, they don't, it's weird, isn't it weird thinking, oh, then you don't need it anymore if it's going well. Well, dang it, okay, let's start some problems then. And then give us back our money. You know what I mean? Because that's how that system works. Well, you know, the most successful and unsuccessful underground economy is drugs. And people are surviving on selling drugs, right? And a lot of people would see that as a problem. And I saw it as give them something to replace that money that's coming in. Anybody would rather do something else, right? I know that. I grew up with the homies. And when I was working for the youth gang services and we had summer jobs, I remember this one kid came up to me and said, hey, you know, can I get a job? And I said, well, dude, we can't pay you what I know you're making right now. Cause I knew the kid. He said, yeah, he goes, but my mom won't go out to dinner with me if she knows it's drug money. But if I get a paycheck, it's different. You know, my mom will respect me, you know? So I think that if we could turn some of those things that people do naturally, I mean, look, now we have cannabis shops everywhere. So, you know, obviously the capitalists caught on that and said, let's put stuff on the corner and we can sell it. We can get taxes for it. So like a lot of things that the community comes up with are like co-opted in some way. I mean, like I live in a community where they won't allow people to sell like fruit on the corners. And I'm like, why? How does that hurt anybody? I really don't, I don't get it, how it hurts people, but people don't like to see people out there on the corner selling fruit, right? I think radicalness sometimes means, I'm just going to say this honestly, that when we have line items, because you have to have them in your budget, right? That we always have this miscellaneous one. We keep a miscellaneous thing and say whatever's necessary. How radical is that? Whatever is necessary, right? So this person can't pay their light bill, pay it. This person can't feed their kids, pay it. This person needs $100 to get all their paperwork in order, their driver's license, their birth certificate, whatever, pay it. It's miscellaneous. And I think more nonprofits need to have that miscellaneous column, because that's really what I think the community wants you to do. Take care of people. Who?
Funders.
Government funders.
Yeah. Yeah. Even collectors.
Individual donors,
Individual donors are.
they're like, do what you need. I've got people who tell me, I was raising this money for this holiday feast drive, and I sent an email to my friend, his name is Grant Abramson, who his wife is on the board at one of these big nonprofit, one of the big charitable things. I said, this is what I wrote. This is my email, dude. We're short this year. Not sure why, but we're a little bit below our goal. And he's like, let me talk to my wife. So talk to her. I got a check yesterday, and he's like, you should not be short feeding people. Like, you can be short, maybe, I don't know, putting this new solar thing on your house, but you can't be short feeding people. And so I think that nonprofits have to be really creative in how they design their budgets, so that there's a place where if it's necessary, you do it. And so don't use, well, I don't take government money, but if you have something that's government, keep that all nice and tidy, and then have this money that you can do what's necessary. No questions, just do it. I do. I have that in mind. Somebody's hungry, I'm going to give them some. I've had kids come up to me, Miss, I haven't eaten. Well, here, go eat. I've obviously eaten. I'm not missing any meals, brother. Here, you can take my money. But I think that's that suspicion thing of people. There's this idea, this suspicion of people and what they're doing with money. If you're about the community, you know what you need to do with the money. Not, I drive a Hyundai, come on. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not trying to drive in that Benz, you know what I mean? I just want to have transportation to do my work. I need a roof over my head for my wife and my family and my cats. I need these things, but everything else is for the community. If I can raise it, that's where it's going, because I've been blessed to be where I'm at today. And I know there's people out there just like me that just need that chance, right? They need that chance. And I was given chances. I don't know why. It just kept happening. I could see when somebody was genuine. For some reason, somebody would reach out to me and I go, that's a real one. I know it's a real one. I feel it. And I hook onto them, and then they take me, to a different place. And look what, now I'm teaching all these West Siders how to be conscious, Let's be conscious, about your privilege and their oppression. Let's see it. When we had the Rodney King riots, does everybody remember Rodney King riots? And the hazard, we call them the hazard projects, but I think the Ramona Gardens is the official name. It was a trip how, like, when that stuff started blowing up, I went to the liquor store there and I said, look, you need to hire some of the homeboys right now, hire them. If you want to save this store, you need to hire them. That's a problem. You're making money off this community. You have not hired one of the homies here at all. Hire them. Nothing will happen to your store. I promise you. Nothing happened to their store. The homies were like, this is my job, man. Don't mess with my job, and it was a trip. And that was the problem with a lot of the stores in South Central. They got burned down because they had nobody from the community working in their stores. You know what I mean? So, like, it's just about welcoming in what I call the shot callers in the neighborhood, because they can keep stuff quiet, right? They can keep things quiet for you. They can keep things, and they can make you important to the neighborhood, even though you might be like worlds away. You gave them a chance. I'll tell you, man, the people who hired me at the Southern California Counselling Center, nobody better mess with them ever. Because it's like they saw something in me that a lot of people couldn't see through the tattoos, my way I acted. I was a little rough. You know, I could, when they did the interview, they said, if we hire you and it doesn't work out, I go, find out. And they hired me. And they said, we wanted to find out. And I'm here. You know what I mean? So like, you take a chance on people, you never know what's going to come of it, right? If you just shut you down to difference or things that don't feel comfortable to you, learn to be in discomfort. It's really a growing experience. It is.